Hello and welcome to our episode of AI. Is it friend or is it foe? So, AI seems to be everywhere today, and it's rewriting really how we do business. And with your portfolio, tax, and estate planning, it's rewriting how we go about it. But is it really good or does it give incomplete information? Well, we have a colleague of ours that really explained AI, and he explained it like this: artificial intelligence is going out there and getting the average answer from the internet, from the various sources it has access to, and it's bringing that average answer back to you. And that answer is what you're getting in your response with AI. So that gives us a little bit of a context as to the answers getting back. It's going to be average. Now, that is basic AI. But when you build custom AI agents or bots, as they call them, and you build them with an intellect that reflects some of your knowledge and approach to the markets, they then start to get more and more powerful. So let's jump in and let's take a look at how a financial planning attorney or client, so a financial planner, an attorney, a tax strategist, how can they use that to better help you as the end client? And how can you use it in your daily life to the extent you want to rely on AI to help you with your financial planning? So, as a financial planner and estate attorney, I can see both the risks and the rewards every day. There are all kinds of efficiencies we can get with AI, but relying on AI in our field, it can be flat out dangerous also because it gives a lot of hallucinations and improper data. So today we're going to talk about how it acts as a friend in some ways and when it may be exactly the foe you want to avoid. Uh, Human judgment, I believe, can be can be improved with the help of AI, but you can't remove human contact or human judgment. So let's look at the rise of AI and how it's affecting decision making. So AI, let's just talk about, can it replace your financial advisor? Well, as a financial advisor, tax attorney, and estate strategist, my answer would be no. And it's not just a self-serving answer, although all of us are being affected and jobs are being threatened, so to speak. Not yet, but eventually. But I think with AI, the key thing about, let's take a portfolio first. Can AI run a portfolio? Well, there are portfolios already being run by AI. It's too early to tell just how good they are, but you got to remember the old axiom that about 80% of portfolios, 80% of the return plus, in fact, comes simply from making sure you have access to various sectors in the stock market, meaning having proper diversification and slanting of the portfolio. That is over 80% of your return. And some studies show that in the 90s. So the famous studies done by firms like Vanguard, where people have looked constantly at, is Vanguard better than having a financial advisor? Well, Vanguard beats 80% of portfolios over the long run for most of your other mutual funds. And then there are firms that create, Vanguard captures basically one core risk premium, and there are about five. There are firms now that are kind of like a Vanguard on steroids that I think are much better. They capture all five of those risk premiums. So that's the subject of a prior podcast. But with that said, can AI help this? AI can analyze a portfolio as a tool for a financial advisor to say, to what degree are we capturing all of these risk premiums? So we try to manage the sleeve of your money that is quote unquote naked in the market in a way in which we're capturing all five of those. But I can have somebody's portfolio come in, do a review, and get an idea of, are they really just another Vanguard or even worse? Or are they capturing all five risk premiums, which can often add 1% to 2% to your returns? So I think AI as a tool to analyze kind of where you're at and to make sure you stay on the right path can be very not only profitable for the end user, meaning the client, but it can also be a powerful tool to make sure the advisor is removing some of their bias and doing it right. So having a checks and balance, I think AI can be a good tool for that. Now, if you stop asking why certain things are being done and AI is giving you answers on a portfolio selection and you gave it a general prompt to say create the best portfolio for me so that I can make as much money as possible in stocks, it's going to give you such a broad answer because it's just looking at the internet, looking at chat rooms, and it's going to bring back what it's hearing. What is the clutter? What is the noise? And that is not necessarily what's going to create the best portfolio. So when you're using artificial intelligence, prompting is oh so critical. And what I mean by that is you can ask AI a question with a sentence or two, or you can give it a 3-page document that is your question. And if you do that 3-page document question, you're going to get a far more precise answer and a far more powerful response, especially when you're including citations and sources, and you can even tell it what to prioritize. So I think AI is a tool that can be very powerful in helping to do research to create a portfolio, but you still have to have that human context asking why, that understanding of a client's goals, their risk tolerance. All of this has to go into how you create a portfolio. So I don't feel at risk of being replaced by AI. I think those that do it are doing it at their peril, and they're probably going to get a very average portfolio. And if you want that, just buy Vanguard. So ultimately, I think to improve things, you've got to take things like tax planning, which can improve your portfolio by 1 to 3% per year if done correctly. And if we do some advanced tax strategies, it can be even far more powerful than that. So it is a great tool, I think, but not really replacing advisors at this point. Now, what about how AI enhances your decision making? Now, here, when used properly, I think AI is very good at that. So, when you have a model of how to go about investing, which most good financial advisors have that because you need systematic ways of investing, not emotional ways of investing. So, AI models, if you properly outline, give parameters as to your models, it can be a very powerful assistant in your practice and therefore help you ultimately deliver better results for your clients. And that, after all, is what we're after. So, for instance, AI could take a look at a portfolio and say, you know what, you have these 3 managers and they all have a big concentration of Apple stock. So when you add all that together, you're over allocated to Apple stock because you have 3 mutual fund managers that are not talking to each other. One calls himself growth, one calls himself value. But for whatever reason, there's this style creep, meaning there's too much of one stock in your portfolio. AI is very powerful at analyzing and detecting those types of problems. It also can look at a model. So we have a model as to how we analyze for taxes. I call it a tax overlay. And I can teach an AI program how this is done, why it is so powerful, and then update it every single year for tax code. So the other big problem with AI is it'll go and grab a tax rule that might be a tax rule that is now changed. So you got to be real careful. But if you do it right, AI can help make sure that the tax efficiency of a portfolio is in alignment with your philosophy and in alignment with the current tax law. And it can be updated very rapidly. And as many of you know, if you've listened to my podcast for a while, you know the tax code is massive. It's bigger than most countries' entire legal system. So having some assistance to get to exactly the court case or exactly the authority that you want, AI can be very powerful in that in our research engines. So I think that AI is a friend when it comes to research, but it's a foe for the untrained user, meaning the untrained user that just puts a general instruction together for the AI, it can have really terrible results. And there's already some famous court cases where an attorney didn't quite do their homework. They had AI create the legal memorandum and they actually argued it in front of the judge. And the opposing party was trying to look up his cases and they didn't exist. Let the judge know. This attorney, to say the least, got in a little bit of trouble. These were made up cases by AI. In some cases, they were actually court cases that AI found in novels. They were made up. So you have to be very careful how you're using it. So you got to use it at your own peril, but it is a friend if you know what you're doing, and it can be a very powerful foe if you use it wrong. Um, so I think AI as a collaborator is powerful. I think AI can replace ultimately a lot of the initial research that is done maybe by a law school student that is a intern that's going to do what is typically very rudimentary beginning level research, but then it has to be dialed in pretty detailed by the attorney. The AI can do that in seconds. So it does affect things in a lot of ways. And I think it's powerful if you use it right. But it also can be dangerous. Now, what about judgment? So if you rely too much or misuse AI, one of the worries is that it will dull our thinking as professionals and as humans, our ability to do critical thinking and to instead simply, I would say Google has already done this to a degree. Instead of thinking for yourself, you Google everything. Well, AI is that on steroids, where you can get into AI and you can have it do most of the thinking for you. I think that there are always going to be a certain type of people that are going to fall victim to that. And I think they're already going to fall victim before AI. I think those that are critical thinkers will always question and should question the results that AI is bringing back. And I can tell you, I've done a lot of back testing and detailed analysis of different stock strategies. So in Laugh When the Market Crashes book, which is coming out shortly, it is really diving deep into why you should have defense in a portfolio. I attempted to use AI for some of this research that I had already done, and I will tell you, it came back with very different results. And I knew from a glance that it was dead wrong. So I dialed in and asked further questions and went deeper and deeper and deeper. And then once it really understood everything that was being analyzed, it came to the same result. But it definitely did not do that initially. So if you were simply putting in a prompt, you got your answer and you believed it, you would have done exactly the opposite of what you should do. So I think the danger of AI dulling critical thinking is going to be person by person. And I would caution everybody not to let the AI do the thinking for you, but to use it as a tool so you can take your thoughts and ideas and go deeper than you ever could before without having to have a staff of 20 people to research something. Uh, the algorithms, as I mentioned in the beginning, the algorithms and the way AI works in general is it's giving you average answers. It's giving you what it sees most commonly. So there are some prompts that you could put in that are somewhat comical where you can ask questions. And because of jokes on Reddit and other things, it comes back with something that makes no sense because a joke went viral and that's what it's seen as the average answer. And it's bringing back something that was quite frankly a joke and it's interpreting it as here's the answer to your question. So you got to be careful with AI and understand that it's the average of what it's seen out there typically in the sources that you're gearing it toward. So one way to control it better and to get better answers is limit the sources it's looking at. So in other words, you can take out maybe some of the social media posts and Reddit and some of those things, and you can say, only look at this type of source. So as a tax attorney, one thing we may do is say, restrict it to only looking at the IRS code and maybe governing case studies and statutes and interpretations that have merit, and also rank the source so that we know what is the prevailing law. And that is already happening within legal research software. so that we can get answers much faster. So again, critical thinking is key. If you just rely on it blindly, you can look for some really bad hallucinations, which can mean pretty serious losses in your portfolio. And once they happen, they're often hard to recover from. Um, Privacy. So, privacy and bias, the data of AI is going to come largely from statements on the internet by imperfect humans. So, the outputs can have flaws. Now, there's a couple of different areas when we're talking about privacy. One, you don't want to put your information as far as account numbers and things of that nature into a model that you're putting out there into what's called a large language model, where now it lives out there and anybody can access it. There are ways to use AI so that your documents, your account numbers, all of that is kept completely private and is not shared with the outside world. But you got to be careful with privacy if you use it wrong and just start getting on a model and putting in all kinds of information, because you're sharing your information with the world when you do that. So ultimately, human accountability, having knowledge as to how to use the tool correctly is going to be very, very important. And you need to keep that critical eye, that human judgment and critical thinking always front and center as you're using AI. If you do it right, though, it can absolutely assist you in powerful ways that will help ultimately all of your financial planning when done right. And again, I can't stress enough, it has to be done right, because lazy planners are going to use it wrong and it's going to hurt people. So you got to be careful. So safeguards. How do we use it smartly? So how do we make AI a friend and not a foe? So a couple of things. One, I would say use AI to supplement your analysis, not to be the only authority. And when you have it doing searches, ask for the source code. I think developing, depending on your field. So for my field of doing financial, tax, and estate planning, I would utilize very key prompts. So there's certain instructions that anytime I'm doing a search to research something, let's say it's a tax law case, I'm going to have a set of parameters that is very, very detailed that I'm going to utilize with every question. So you can do this by creating what we call guardrails in a custom AI agent so that it always knows those guardrails. Or you could have a 3-page document that you cut and paste every time you ask a tax question. And that the AI is powerful enough to read all of that and follow your instructions. But you can't do it by just saying, hey, I want to cut my taxes. I'm a business owner. How should I do that? It'll give you general answers and give you a starting point, but it won't get into the case law as to how it's done. So I had a conversation with a colleague of mine that we do business with, and she's a great realtor, but she was asking a question around the 100-hour rule that applies for a short-term rental to be able to offset ordinary income. So it's a powerful tax strategy. And she found a great property that traveling nurses could use the property. Well, that's great, but they stay for months at a time, and you have a 7-day average rule. So even though it's short term from a general standpoint, then yeah, 3 months is short term. Typically, you're doing a year, 2-year lease. It doesn't satisfy the rule, and therefore all the tax benefits that the client is after and looking for a property would be lost. Now, this particular realtor knew her stuff, meaning she remembered there was a rule and thought she was violating it. She was clarifying. But I would say most of the realtors out there probably don't understand that rule well enough. So you want to be able to make sure that um, when you're doing any kind of a strategy, the proper parameters is going to give you the exact results you need, I guess. So you want to make sure that the safeguards you use it as a system, but don't replace your critical thinking. And if you can do that, it can be a very powerful friend, I would say, in if you use AI for analysis, but not as the sole authority. Always verify. So this is the second big safeguard is always verify the critical data manually before signing or filing anything. And the attorney that filed his court case based on made up cases My guess is they will never do that again. They will learn how to do proper prompting. But that is potentially career ending. I mean, theoretically, he could be disbarred. So ultimately, when you do something like this, when you're having it do your research, give the citation and ask it to give you the link to the exact source and do that homework manually. Make sure it's a proper source. Look at the actual IRS tax code if you're doing tax planning. If we're doing portfolio management, look at the actual record of the markets and make sure the analysis is correct. One wrong number somewhere in the AI's analysis and the entire analysis collapses. Third thing, especially if you have clients like we do, you've got to keep your client data local, encrypted if possible, and never expose it to the large language models. And that's very, very important. If you don't do that, you're not even compliant. So if you're a client of a firm, you want to darn well make sure that they're not putting your data out there. So at our financial advisory firm at We Alliance Wealth Advisors, our processes and procedures, we don't ever put client data out there. It's just an absolute game stopper. So you can use it for great research and things, but you do not put client data out there ever. So you want to use encryption as ideal. So we have some strategies we do. Many of you that are clients, you know this, will send you even links that are all to directly upload to our system so it doesn't go across the internet, or encrypted emails. We take that all the way through to the use of AI when we're using it. But we use AI generally more for general purposes or research, not putting client data in at all. It's just too new to risk it, except with things that have encryption, which there are some tools for that. And then a fourth safeguard would be to maintaining your continuing education in both tech and ethics, meaning as clients, you may not go this far. You're just going to use it to help you do research and things. But as your planner, as somebody advising you, they need to stay up on how the technology works, what its limitations are, because most of what you see out there on the internet is just the hype. So we took a course through MIT that really went through how to use it in an enterprise, and it will both enlighten you and scare you to death. Because AI, when we talk about friend or foe, AI in a practice like ours can be an absolute friend when done right. And the MIT course just reinforced that completely, but it also really showed how to do it right versus those that are simply getting on ChatGPT and calling that safe. It's not safe when you're putting the wrong data in there. So you got to be careful. But when you do it right, it can be very powerful. So you have to stay up on the rules. You have to stay up on the ethics for your industry, and then go beyond that. So if you have clients, protect them. When in doubt, just simply don't do it if it involves a client. Meaning you've got to keep things general and don't put their data up there. So in the financial and tax world, we don't put client data out there at all. So humans ultimately set these policies and principles. AI, again, is simply carrying out your instructions. So don't be afraid of AI. It is powerful if you do it right. But make sure that you do it right, because it could cost you your licenses as professionals. So both the CFP board and the state bar, they're evolving and changing and adapting rules of AI and how to best apply. But you should always exceed them because they're still trying to catch up. So I think ultimately, if you have the proper safeguards, AI can be a friend. Now let's back out a little bit. What about in the general sense? Is AI a friend or foe for our economy and our world? So for the world, I think AI is going to make the world far more efficient. AI is going to, for instance, there will be manufacturing and factories with the combination of AI and robotics, where the days of I remember stories of, I think, Nike somewhere overseas having basically, dollar an hour labor and sweat camps and things that are just disgusting as to humans, should be treated better. Those days are over, and that's good, or ending very quickly, because AI combined with robotics and things of that nature, will be able to create all the clothing and everything that you want locally very soon. You won't need to go offshore. You won't need to hire labor in some of these foreign countries. The question is that good or bad? So it can be seen as very good because you don't have sweat labor used by some of these companies that are exploiting populations. It can be seen as bad in the sense that those jobs are going to go away. So when you back up and you look at, is AI, and I would say AI with the combination of robotics, is it going to be good or bad? I think it's definitely going to be both. So it's going to create job losses. I think it already is. I will tell you, in a law office, we can probably do the work of 3 attorneys with 1 very easily already. From a tax planning standpoint, our tax planning is better than ever because we are able to do deeper research very quickly. So instead of having a clerk do it and then the attorney is spending hours and hours doing it, you can avoid the clerk altogether and cut the research time for the attorney down to a fraction of what it used to be. For drafting, of course, it makes it a lot easier, but drafting is something you still have to have that critical eye because words matter in law. So you've got to make sure it's trained very well, because if you use the wrong word that has a similar meaning in the English language, but a different meaning under the law, you just ruined a strategy. So you got to be careful. So we see this all the time when people try to draft their own planning, especially advanced planning. It's just incredibly dangerous, and they take what is a great tax concept and screw it up. So you got to be careful. So when we talk about the big picture, I think that AI is going to cause job losses. It is also going to create a different type of job. And it should theoretically create more wealth, more efficiencies, and give all of us more free time. So maybe the days of a 5-day work week will ultimately be over and it'll be a 2 or a 3-day work week. That is the dream of AI. But the problem is the reality going to be that all those profits go to just a few individuals, which we tend to be seeing in the technology sector now? If that is how it happens, it's going to create more and more division, more and more separation of the haves and have-nots in society, and a continued erosion of the middle class. If that happens, that's going to be very bad for our economy here in the United States in particular, because we thrive on the middle class and the ability of everybody to have that opportunity to live the American dream. And if they work hard and if they're innovative, they should be able to get their piece of that American dream. And that's going to become easier in some ways with AI and entrepreneurship, but it's going to become harder also because fewer people are needed to achieve certain dreams, which means less jobs. So I think it's, the chapter is not yet written as to the end result for AI. Are we going to be able to do it in a way that really benefits everybody to some degree? And yes, I am a capitalist. I think it should benefit the entrepreneurs that are creating value for everybody more. I don't think it should just be, make everybody a C student. So if you earn an A, let's give your A to the D students. They now have a C. That's how we explain capitalism to our kids. And they're like, that's crazy. That's stupid. Why would we ever do that? Well, some people in society think that's how it should work, and they forget history and what socialism is all about and how little it works. So I think AI creates dangers there, because when that happens, socialism leads to communism. And communism, we all, I think, would agree we don't want to live in a communistic society. So long story short, I think AI has the potential to be very good, but it also is dangerous. Now, when you look at things such as how AI is being used right now, there's wars going on, and particularly with Iran, where we're attacking Iran. And you can see how AI is being used in that war to some degree, and it is devastatingly effective. So that gets scary also, because when you get powerful weapons in the wrong hands, unless you have those powerful defenses to counteract them, that's going to lead to lost lives, and going to lead to more attacks, even by small groups that are more effective. So I think AI has a lot of scary things about it also. I grew up watching things like The Terminator. Well, The Terminator is a reality at this point, meaning they have already built, whether it's drones or humanoid robotics, all of that is happening. Most of it has already happened. It's just a matter of how effective it is at this point. But the combination of AI and robotics has both the ability to be your friend and definitely your ability to be your foe. So responsible development by the global economies of the world is critical, and how to contain the bad actors is still something that they'll have to figure out. The good news is AI can help them figure out those solutions. So I think overall AI is here, and it's here to stay, whether we think it's a friend or a foe. So we all should work hard to make it a friend, because ignoring the problem isn't going to make it go away. So we have to lead as a country in this. If we don't, it's going to be at our peril. So hopefully our governments make the right decisions, not the naive decisions. And I think if we do that, we'll hopefully have a much better chance of making AI a friend. So AI is a rabbit hole. If you go down, you can spend a lot of time learning about it. I encourage everybody to do it, but be careful and don't let it replace your own ability to employ critical thinking and to bring multiple areas together, which is oh so critical when you're talking about the investment and tax world. So I hope this was entertaining, if nothing else. And if you are not yet into the AI world, I would encourage you to play with it a little bit. It is very powerful, but at the same time, realize its limitations. And always remember, the way most of these models are built, you're going to get the average answer that it's seen out there on the internet. And that's not always a good thing. So use it responsibly. So thank you for joining me today for AI Friend or Foe, and we'll see you on the next episode of our newly branded Laugh When the Market Crashes podcast. I'm Terry Wheeler. Please follow us, share the episode if you enjoyed it, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you for listening to Laugh When the Market Crashes with Terry Wheeler. Be sure to click the subscribe button to be notified as new episodes become available.